Chapter 7. My Grandma and the Mystery of a Jewish Family, 1966. In early June 1966, my kindergarten experience came to an end. In April, I had scribbled "Oppose Chairman Mao" on the ground at school, an act of youthful defiance that, looking back, bore a chilling significance. By May, however, the entire propaganda machinery pivoted this accusation, opposing Chairman Mao against Liu Shaoqi, the president of China and Mao's second-in-command, who had once been his staunchest supporter. The individual who practically constructed Mao's cult of personality was now branded a traitor, a counter-revolutionary, an enemy of the state. Maybe I had challenged Chairman Mao too soon. If I had waited just a few months, I could have faced severe consequences, even at 7. By summer, the Cultural Revolution was in full swing. My parents became engulfed in the turmoil, disappearing into countless meetings and sessions of denunciation at work. They left home early, returned late, communicated in whispers, and bore exhaustion on their faces. Consequently, I often found myself home alone. My mother had no choice but to send me to spend the summer with my grandmother in the Hongkou district. To me, Grandma's house meant only one thing: New Year's. Visiting Grandma's for Chinese New Year was always the highlight of my year, the pinnacle of joy, unmatched. Every New Year's morning, my sister and I were roused before dawn. Half asleep, we'd stumble down the bamboo ladder from our attic loft, feet groping in the dark. The floor chilled our souls, the air hung still, and our eyes barely fluttered open. I'd rinse our faces quickly, then scarf down a few mouthfuls of rice soup with pickles or fermented bean curd, just enough to tide us over until the actual feast. That little ache of hunger in our bellies, it was all part of the ritual. It made the upcoming banquet even more enjoyable. Then came the dressing ceremony, complete with new clothes. My mother would help me into mine stiff, oversized, and uncomfortable, always too big in the shoulders and too long in the sleeves. She'd step back, take a good look, then nod with satisfaction and repeat the same line she said every year.
"See, just a bit big. Next year it'll fit perfectly. Next year it'll be just right."
I never understood it. Why couldn't the clothes fit this year? What was so wrong with now? As I grew older, I understood that the new clothes were meant to endure, crafted with the future in mind, due to the scarcity of those times. Once we were ready, the family would descend the narrow, twisting staircase with bags of fruit and snacks, forming a proud little procession. As we filed out of the alley, neighbors would call out,
"Are you heading off to pay New Year's visits?"
"Yes, we are going to Grandma's to celebrate."
That moment always embarrassed me a little for some reason, this whole ceremonial display of heading to my grandmother's house. I was a big boy now, so why did I always have to tag along like a little kid? My grandmother's house was on Tangshan, meaning Ancient China, Road, tucked deep in the heart of the Hongkou district, also known as Little Tokyo. We took the Route 25 electric trolley bus from the Bund to get there. In those days, Shanghai's streets were laced with these gliding machines, drawing their power from a maze of overhead wires. Unlike the sputtering gas buses in the city's outskirts, the trolleys moved quietly and smoothly. Our journey began in the narrow lane of Yongshang Road, and then we turned onto Jinling East Road. I can still picture the old Route 1 tram traveling along Jinling Road, its tracks sparkling in the sunlight, the bell ringing, and its iron wheels' slow, screeching cadence. That wooden carriage on steel rails always seemed like a scene from a dream. How could something so hefty move so gracefully? However, we opted not to take the tram on New Year's. It was a luxury tram's cost 3 cents, trolley buses 4, and regular buses 5. The Route 25 stop was only 5 minutes away, at the end of Jinling East Road. Even that brief journey felt indulgent. There was one exception on an icy New Year's Day when I had a fever. My mother broke the norm and took me one stop on the tram. Catching the Route 25 trolley wasn't easy either. We would wait ages at the stop, bundled up in layers of wool and cotton, mingling with other families. When the trolley finally appeared, we would squeeze in. I would rush to hand over my 7 cents and make my way to my favorite spot, standing behind the driver, marveling at the bus as it moved ahead, my eyes filled with amazement. Our route was northbound through the Bund, past the 6 ferry terminal, over the Waibaidu Bridge, bypassing the Triangle Market, and finally onto Tangshan Road. Each landmark felt like a chapter from a well-known story. We disembarked at the intersection of Gongping Road, that is Justice Road, and Tangshan Road. However, there were times when we were lost in the throngs of people, when we mistakenly boarded the wrong bus Route 19 headed for Tilanqiao, that is Carry Basket Bridge. By the time we noticed our error, it was already too late. Thus, we took a longer route to reach our destination, Wufu Lane. Wufu Lane, which means 5 Blessings Lane, and Sanyi Village, which means Triple Benefits Village, were twin alleys off Tangshan Road, like 2 quiet veins branching from the same artery. They connected deep at the back, forming a secret shortcut between them. Each lane had a tiny grocery shop at its entrance, and a weathered payphone booth beside it. The alleys opened into wide passageways, lined with rows of 3-story red brick homes. Their flat rooftops cut jagged shapes against the pale winter sky. Each row housed 2 families, stacked side by side like drawers in a chest. 6 or 7 rows stretched deep into the block, an entire world in a city already bursting with life. My grandmother's home was at the end of Wufu Lane number 51 right, at the corner where it met Sanyi Village. Every new year, the red brick building radiated warmth, history, and the promise of a family feast, evoking a sense of being at the center of the universe. It marked the end of one journey and the start of another celebration. Entering 51 Wufu Lane, I was immediately embraced by a familiar warmth-dense, lived-in, and cozy. It felt like stepping into a well-loved family quilt filled with generations of memories. The front door led to a narrow hallway, dimly lit by a single bare bulb above. Its soft yellow light created gentle shadows on the worn walls, outlining countless footsteps that had traveled this path. To the left was the kitchen, cramped, lively, and vibrant. The air was rich with the mixed scents of soy sauce, ginger, scallions, and the occasional sharp tang of vinegar wafting from a simmering pot. A small charcoal stove sat tucked in the corner, its bricks darkened and cracked from years of use. Above the sink, a row of enamel bowls, battered ladles, and shiny woks hung neatly on metal hooks, each telling stories of Lunar New Year banquets, midnight snacks, and joyful laughter. Straight ahead lay the sitting room on the first floor, our communal hearth, chaotic and crowded. This was my eldest uncle's domain. A square wooden table anchored the space, its edges worn smooth by time and the elbows. Mismatched stools circled it, often shifting as relatives jostled for position. Behind the sitting room was their sleeping quarters, a small, humble back room, kept in quiet order. Here the air was always thick with conversation, the slap of mahjong tiles, the shuffle of slippers on wooden floor, and the low murmur of politics, gossip, and nostalgia. To the left, a narrow staircase rose with a familiar creak. Each step echoed with generations of ascent and descent. Halfway up, tucked into the crook of the landing, was the pavilion room, an 8-square-meter alcove that contained the entirety of my second uncle's life. Barely larger than a walk-in closet, it still had a bed, a table with a few stools, and makeshift shelves stacked with jars, slippers, and bottles. Small as it was, it pulsed with resilience. Up a few more creaking steps, We reached the second floor. On the right was a 5-square-meter room belonging to my great-aunt, a quiet woman, alone in that small space, yet somehow present everywhere. She was a figure of hushed power, always listening, rarely speaking, and never missing a thing. At the end of the hallway, the second back room belonged to my third uncle's family. Modestly larger, it was filled with the smell of mothballs and medicinal oils, its wood-paneled furniture worn but proud. Family photos peeked out from behind lace doilies, and the air was thick with the scent of thyme. Next were the 7 slim steps leading up to the rooftop loft, a staircase I had ascended and counted countless times, each creak recognizable as my own breath. When I was around 5 or 6, I fell and rolled down those same steps, hitting my head. Although the scar has long disappeared, the memory lingers, inscribed like a caution, a secret shared between the stairs and me. At the top stood the terrace door. Pushing it open, a rush of rooftop wind welcomed you, mingling the scents of coal smoke, damp brick, and sun-baked laundry. A few more shaky steps ascended to the third-floor loft, my grandmother's domain. She resided above everyone, not just in elevation but in unspoken authority. Her room, distinct from the others, was awash with sunlight, golden rays streaming through rooftop windows, casting light on wooden beams and old calendars tacked to the wall. It was uncomplicated, yet tranquil, the pinnacle of our family's vertical universe. For me, her room was hallowed ground. This place felt like time slowed down, where the city's noise faded away. In that room, I was more than just a child visiting relatives. I was a thread woven into the fabric of something much older and profound, the memory of 51 Wufu Lane, where love flourished amidst crowded spaces. Life stacked itself floor by floor, and there was always room for one more. The Spring Festival pulsed as the heart of our calendar, an annual celebration brimming with sound, scent, and color that ignited the spirit. It was not just a celebration. It marked the most significant moment of the year, a ritual steeped in the land's ancient traditions. And its pulse? Red. The entire country seemed to wrap itself in red paper couplets pasted on doors, festive banners flapping in the wind, scarlet lanterns hanging from balconies. Girls wore red cotton-padded jackets, their braids tied with red silk ribbons. Red envelopes were passed from elders to children, each one warm with promise, even if it contained just a few coins. Long before communism adopted red as the color of its ideology, China had already embraced it. It wasn't ideological. It was emotional. Red symbolized joy, represented luck, and signified life. However, ever cosmopolitan, Shanghai had its own flavor of celebration. Less flamboyant, quieter, somewhat more restrained, and slightly more refined. The elite Shanghainese, especially those with a penchant for Western styles, looked down upon the garish red and green designs in rural festivals. They viewed it as crude, obnoxious, and lacking sophistication akin to a tuxedo crafted from paper flowers. While they accepted a touch of red, they preferred it subtle, a hint of crimson on a silk cheongsam, or a delicate ribbon in a little girl's hair, never a riot of color. Nevertheless, even the most genteel Shanghainese found it hard to resist the allure of the Spring Festival. In Shanghai, the authentic essence of the new year wasn't captured by decorations, the noise of firecrackers, or red envelopes. It resided in the clinking of chopsticks, the simmering of soup pots, and the rustling of bamboo steamers. At its heart, it revolved around one thing: food. Feasting signifies celebration. Eating well honors ancestors, celebrates life, and fosters family unity. Despite one's tastes becoming more elegant or Western-influenced, Food remains a vital connection between generations, traditions, and past and present memories. At my grandmother's table, this connection was both expansive and plentiful. My grandmother, a detail-oriented woman from Ningbo, regarded the New Year's banquet with almost sacred importance. Every dish was meticulously planned and prepared, from delicate cold appetizers to sizzling stir-fries, crispy fried snacks, nourishing soups, sweet desserts, and refreshing beverages. No ingredient, whether seafood, meat, vegetables, or condiments, escaped her critical eye. This annual family feast, where everyone shared joyful abundance, was her personal, grand battle, showcasing her wisdom, determination, and profound love for her family. Every year, without exception, on the brisk morning of New Year's Day, whether it was windy, rainy, or snowy, my grandmother would wake up before dawn, typically around 5 or 6 o'clock. With her tiny bound feet, she carefully navigated the steep 5 steps from her attic bedroom, crossed the rooftop terrace, went to the open balcony, and lit 2 coal stoves. One stove was dedicated to a gently simmering, rich, fragrant soup, while the other was prepared for quick stir-frying, filling the air with delicious aromas. Each year, upon arriving at Grandma's house on the morning of the Lunar New Year, no matter how early it was, she would be softly muttering, as if in conversation with herself.
Why are you all so late?
To Grandma, it felt like every child was perpetually late. After all, wasn't the real joy of New Year's in anticipating the return of her children and grandchildren? From the first to the third day of the new year, her attic turned into a lively dining room, filled with laughter, chatter, and the enticing scent of delicious food. A wobbly redwood table at the center would soon become a feast for the senses, brimming with visually stunning and delectable dishes: savory braised yellow croaker, tender white-cut pork, crispy fried shrimp, gently boiled chicken, silky jellyfish skin, salty fried pomfret, succulent braised pork with preserved vegetables, aromatic scallion-baked crucian carp, golden fried perch, fluffy shrimp scrambled with eggs, salted crab, fragrant drunken crab, steaming meatballs in vermicelli soup, sesame-filled glutinous rice balls, and sweet red date and adzuki bean soup. Each dish was more enticing than the last, creating an endless array of choices. At the table, uncles, aunts, and cousins shared hearty laughter while savoring rice wine, beer, and spirits as the children eagerly grabbed their juice and soda. Their excitement sometimes led to spilled beverages and broken glasses, which brought gentle disapproval from my grandmother. However, her soft scolding was always accompanied by a warm smile filled with forgiveness and kindness. Grandma had 6 children and 23 grandchildren, each contributing to the joy and the chaos of our family reunions. Following my grandfather's early passing, Grandma took on the immense responsibility of raising the entire family by herself. She faced numerous challenges, selflessly sacrificing to ensure her children's survival and well-being. Food, of course, became her foremost concern, symbolizing both her love and her resolve to uphold the family legacy. On Chinese New Year's Day, Grandma hosted a grand feast that spanned several rooms and floors of the house, expertly arranged to cater to adults and children. The main table was in the 3rd floor loft, under Grandma's watchful eye, surrounded by my uncles, aunts, and mother. Additional tables occupied every corner: the 2nd floor back room, the tiny mezzanine pavilion, and the lively 1st floor sitting room. There was even a smaller separate table designated for the youngest kids. After hurriedly finishing their meals, the young children couldn't wait to escape the tables, spilling into the alleyways to chase one another and fill the streets with laughter. For some reason, I have always preferred to sit with the adults at Grandma's main table. mesmerized by their discussions. This tendency often led to me being teased even more as a girl, since I chose not to race through the alleys with my boy cousins. Although I would join them from time to time, I felt an irresistible pull toward the adult world, keenly listening as my uncles and aunts delved into complex and mysterious topics, like national affairs, that always seemed just out of reach for them. They passionately discussed the overwhelmingly positive revolutionary climate while lamenting their frustrating work situations. At times, they would even adopt a detective-like demeanor, whispering about secretive and unverified rumors and state secrets, with each gossip item cloaked in fascination. My three uncles, all hard-working men, were the foundation of our family discussions. The eldest uncle was quiet, gentle, and thoughtful, often content to observe the scene with a calm detachment. The second uncle was passionate and vocal, fiercely loyal yet somewhat stubborn, and regularly initiated debates or challenged societal norms. My third uncle was reliable and reserved, choosing his words carefully and often expressing opinions with subtle ambiguity. My eldest aunt's husband was a former senior accountant at an American bank before the communists took over in 1949, distinguishing himself as a petit bourgeois. His independent mindset and refined manners often made him feel somewhat isolated during family gatherings, especially around our other uncles, who shared revolutionary ideals. While his clever quips occasionally prompted laughter, he seemed rather lonely and resigned amid the fervor of communism and the subsequent Cultural Revolution. In contrast, my younger aunt's husband, a train conductor with extensive travel experience, consistently stole the spotlight. Charismatic and easygoing, his cheerful disposition and limitless supply of enthralling tales captivated everyone at the dinner table. Whether he was sharing astonishing news from far-off provinces or humorous anecdotes from his trips, he never failed to amuse and delight, leaving everyone in fits of laughter. Even during the ongoing political chaos of the Cultural Revolution, New Year celebrations at Grandma's house remained a treasured ritual, providing a brief refuge from the difficulties outside. Amid the lively gatherings, filled with laughter and spirited discussions, our family fostered a quiet sense of warmth, tradition, and hope, a heritage that Grandma assiduously safeguarded. Yet, my grandmother's life held far richer stories than I could have imagined. One tranquil afternoon, I was hanging around with Grandma. As if recalling a fleeting memory from a bygone era, she casually mentioned something peculiar to me.
You know, Jewish people are quite tidy. They tend to manage money well. Jews? Which Jews?
It was a shocker to me to hear Jews out of the blue.
The Jewish people who used to live downstairs in the sitting room on the ground floor.
She replied as if it were obvious. I was astonished.
Did Jews reside in my grandmother's house? In my uncle's room?
I felt lost.
They were refugees.
I did not understand what that meant. At that time, Jews appeared distant and enigmatic to me, foreigners occasionally mentioned in the newspapers, often depicted as enemies in anti-Israeli propaganda. How could these seemingly reactionary and alien people have ever coexisted with my grandmother? The thought troubled me, blending curiosity with confusion and even a sense of fear. It felt as though history had secretly infiltrated our family, unnoticed amidst our everyday lives. I often felt guilty and uncomfortable about the dishonorable mistake Grandma made. Along with this strange revelation came another one of my grandmother's odd sayings.
People are made of mud.
To illustrate, she would enthusiastically wash her arms and hands with soap, rinse them in a basin of water, and proudly present the cloudy water as evidence of her assertion. As a child, I regarded it as merely another folk superstition, a whimsical notion from my grandmother. Or perhaps it was the idea of those Jews,